Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really digging into an extraordinary ancient text, the Arthaśástra. Imagine this, a comprehensive manual on statecraft, economics, military strategy, all from ancient India.
Right.
And this isn't just, dry history. It's actually a shockingly practical guide for rulers. Some parts feel ancient, others, well, almost unsettlingly modern.
Absolutely. And for this deep dive, we're drawing heavily from the foundational English translation of Kauṭilya's Arthaśástra. It's a text with immense historical and you could say philosophical value.
And brought to light by who?
Arthaśástra. His 1915 translation was basically a rediscovery, bringing this incredible work to the modern world.
So our mission today is to unpack some of the most compelling nuggets of knowledge from this text, help you get a handle on its core ideas and maybe why it still fascinates people so much. So let's start at the beginning. What exactly is this text and who was this famous author?
Well, the work itself points very clearly to one author, the famous Brahmin, Kauṭilya, though he also went by other names, Vishnugupta and Chanakya.
Right, Chanakya. And he wasn't just some scholar locked away, was he?
Not at all. Tradition actually credits him with something huge, orchestrating the overthrow of the last Nanda king, and then placing the great Maurya Chandragupta on the throne. This is around, say, 321 to 296 BC.
And the text itself seems to fit that period?
It does. It claims that time frame, and honestly, the archaic style, the language used, it strongly backs that up.
Okay, so what's the essence of the Arthaśástra? What was he trying to do?
Essentially, you can think of it as a massive compendium. It pulls together insights from almost all the previous Arthaśástras, texts on statecraft by earlier teachers. But its core focus is very specific: the acquisition and maintenance of the earth.
Which basically means state power and prosperity.
Exactly. Securing it, expanding it, keeping it stable. And what makes it unique is Kauṭilya doesn't just collect ideas. He frequently adds his own, often quite sharp, sometimes contrasting opinions.
And the scope is just incredible. I mean, what strikes you immediately is the sheer range of topics.
Oh, absolutely.
Everything from the king's daily schedule, managing his advisors,
Right.
all the way to international relations, and even, like you mentioned, really specific things like how to spot poison in your food.
Indeed. And that king's schedule, it's remarkably detailed, very rigorous. For example, the text says in the very first 8th part of the day, he's supposed to be reviewing the accounts, receipts, expenditures.
Serious business first thing.
Then it's bathing, meals, self-study. It paints this picture of a monarch whose entire life is meticulously structured around serving the state.
And serving the state meant staying alive.
Yeah.
The personal safety aspect is fascinating.
Extremely important.
You mentioned the poison detection. The details are so vivid. A heron swoons, a pheasant acts distressed.
A cuckoo dies, a partridge's eyes turn red.
It's like an ancient forensic guide.
Yeah.
And then the precautions in the harem, the private quarters.
Yes. Women armed with bows, strict controls on anything coming in or out. It really highlights the constant vigilance needed.
So, if the king's life is that precarious, choosing his inner circle, his ministers, must have been critical. How did Kauṭilya approach that?
Very pragmatically. He really understood human nature, it seems. He specifically advises against appointing old classmates.
Oh, why is that?
His reasoning was that their past familiarity might lead them to despise the king, or at least lack the proper respect and loyalty.
Interesting. So no old buddies. What about theorists? Academics?
He wasn't keen on them either. He thought pure theorists were prone to making big mistakes in practical matters.
So who did he want?
He looked for a combination: high family background, wisdom, purity of character. Based on fundamental human drives, really. There were tests related to religious piety. Could they be swayed by false holiness? Monetary gain, could they be bribed? Love, could desire compromise them? And fear, could they be intimidated?
Wow. So they actively tried to corrupt potential ministers to see if they'd break.
Essentially, yes. It reveals this incredibly keen, maybe even cynical understanding of where people are vulnerable.
And what happened if they failed? Were they just tossed aside?
Not necessarily executed or anything. They were deemed unfit for the highest council, but still useful. They might be relegated to overseeing state assets like mines, forests, or manufactories. Less sensitive roles, but still important. It's a calculated way of managing human weakness.
A place for everyone, even the slightly flawed.
Within limits, yes. And related to this control, another absolute cornerstone was secrecy in the king's council.
How secret are we talking?
Kautilya's standard was intense. He said deliberations should be so private, even birds cannot see them.
That's quite an image.
And the warning was stark. Careless talk, getting drunk, even talking in your sleep, if state secrets got out, the person responsible would be torn to pieces.
Serious stuff. So with this tightly controlled, tested inner circle, how did Kautilya advise the king actually make decisions? Alone.
Not usually for complex issues. He recommended consulting 3 or 4 ministers.
Safety in numbers.
Partly that, but also diversity of thought. He argued a single minister might not always reach the best or even a definite conclusion, collective wisdom, but within that very secret, controlled group.
It makes sense. And moving slightly outwards, what about envoys? Diplomats.
They had a very defined, almost sacred role, too. They were seen as the mouthpieces of kings. And the text is explicit. Even if an envoy was personally considered an outcast, they shouldn't be harmed for delivering their message exactly as given. It was another speech.
An early form of diplomatic immunity, perhaps?
You could definitely see it that way. It shows a recognition of the need for reliable communication between states, even hostile ones.
Okay, so the king's immediate circle is secure. Communication lines are sort of established. But Kautilya went much further with information gathering, didn't he? The spy system is legendary.
Oh, absolutely. It's incredibly sophisticated, really solidifying his reputation as a master strategist. It's quite something.
So how did this invisible network actually function? What kind of spies are we talking about?
It was a whole tiered system using all sorts of disguises. You had spies posing as fraudulent disciples, recluses, house soldiers,
Merchants, ascetics.
Everyday people, seemingly.
Exactly. But also classmates or colleagues of officials, firebrands, maybe agitators, poisoners, and yes. For instance, spies disguised as classmates might pass information gathered from fiery spies, maybe those working as attendants within the palace or important households. And mendicant women could relay info from poisoners, think cooks, barbers, people with intimate access back to central institutes of espionage.
Institutes of espionage. It sounds so organized.
It was, but what's really striking is how integrated yet compartmentalized it was designed to be.
Meaning?
Strict rules. The central institutes weren't supposed to know the individual wandering spies, and the spies in different categories weren't supposed to know each other.
Need to know basis. Classic espionage.
Precisely. And this wasn't just about foreign enemies, which is key. It was hugely about internal control, protecting against sedition, corruption, even factions forming within the state bureaucracy or the royal family.
So it paints this picture of a ruler needing to be constantly wary, gathering intelligence not just outwards, but inwards. Information is power, and internal threats are just as dangerous.
Kautilya certainly believes so. That internal rot, like the fear from a lurking snake, he called it, was often more serious.
Okay, let's shift to the nuts and bolts of running the kingdom. Governance, the economy. How detailed does the Arthaśástra get there?
Incredibly detailed. Take something as basic as forming villages.
Okay.
It specifies they should have between 100 and 500 families, primarily of the Shudra class, that's the commoner or laboring caste. They needed clear natural boundaries like rivers or mountains and should be positioned so they could help defend each other. Very practical planning.
And the state's hand was involved in everything, it seems. You mentioned superintendents earlier.
Yes, a whole range of them, overseeing specific sectors. The level of oversight is, well, astonishing.
Give me an example.
Okay, the superintendent of liquor. His rules were precise. Liquor shouldn't be taken out of villages, shops selling it shouldn't be too close together, and it should only be sold in small amounts to people who were known.
Controlling consumption.
And controlling behavior. The text even says people seen being too extravagant or spend beyond their income could be arrested after they'd been drinking, using alcohol sales as a way to spot potential problems.
Wow. What about other areas?
Well, there's the superintendent of prostitutes. It describes a system where leading Ganakas, professional courtesans, were actually employed by the state on a salary.
On salary.
Yes, 1,000 payas a year for a top one. They were required to train in music from the age of 8, and there were specific fines for things like defamation, assault, or abduction involving them.
So the state is regulating and even employing people in these sectors.
Regulating, taxing, controlling. Same with superintendents for mines, gold, gems, textiles. The detail is amazing. Classifying gems, testing gold purity, rules for weavers about how much thread they should use.
It suggests this philosophy of total state involvement, doesn't it? For order, but also definitely for revenue.
Absolutely. And that revenue aspect demanded serious financial accountability.
You mentioned embezzlement earlier.
Kauṭilya identifies, get this, 40 different ways government officials could embezzle funds.
40. He must have seen it all.
It shows a deep, maybe even cynical understanding of corruption. A timeless struggle, right? Government versus graft.
So how did he try to stop it?
Carrots and sticks. Superintendents who actually increased net revenue were rewarded handsomely 8 times the amount they increased it by.
Nice incentive.
But if revenue decreased under their watch, they were fined 8 times the amount of the loss. Big stakes. And all accounts had to be submitted meticulously by a specific time each year, the month of Ashada.
So for anyone listening today, it just reveals this incredibly advanced administrative machine for its time, focused on revenue, fighting corruption, down to the smallest details.
It really does. It's a testament to how deeply the state was meant to permeate every aspect of economic life.
Okay, moving from the economy to law and justice. What did the Arthaśástra lay out there?
Again, very specific rules. Legal agreements, for instance, were considered void if they were made in secret or under duress or involved fraud.
Makes sense. How were disputes handled?
Often locally. Disputes over things like fields were supposed to be decided by village elders, so a degree of local authority was recognized.
And what about family matters? Marriage laws?
Fascinating insights there, too. It reflects the social norms of the time. For wives whose husbands were away, there were specific waiting periods before they could remarry or were considered abandoned. It depended on whether the husband had been heard from, his caste, whether they had children. For example, a young wife had to wait 7 menstrual cycles if her husband was heard of, 5 if not.
Very precise.
And Kauṭilya even weighs in personally on marital duty, stating that neglecting intercourse with one's wife after her monthly purification was actually a violation of one's duty.
Interesting glimpse into personal life expectations? What about broader social structures, like slavery?
The rules there are quite specific as well. It says Aryas, which generally refer to the upper castes, or perhaps freeborn people who hadn't reached adulthood, shouldn't be sold or mortgaged into slavery. But there's a particularly notable point. If a master had a child with his female slave, both the child and the mother were immediately recognized as free.
That's unexpected and suggests a complex social reality.
It certainly does, not simple categories.
So, when laws were broken, how severe was the justice system? What were the
Punishments like?
They could be incredibly harsh and often varied by caste or social rank. The text details punishments quite graphically.
For example?
For assault, depending on who struck
and putting them into the state treasury. That could mean death.
high stakes for undermining the state's finances?
Definitely. And even things we might see as minor or private had penalties. Physicians treating secret ulcers without reporting them, or homeowners sheltering such patients could be fined.
Why? Fear disease or something else?
Possibly disease, maybe hiding injuries from fights or illicit activities, and moving around near royal buildings at night without cause was fined heavily. For a highborn woman, it could even mean death.
A stark reminder of the social order and the absolute priority of royal security.
Absolutely. But Kautilya's underlying principle, his stated philosophy, was pragmatic. Punishment shall be proportional to the gravity of the crime. And again, he often contrasts his views. Like, on what kind of land is best for a state, he argued mine-rich land was better than just grain-rich land.
Why that distinction?
Because mines produce wealth gold, metals, which can then be used to secure grain, allies, armies. Grain just produces grain. It's that strategic, long-term thinking again.
Right, which brings us neatly to the bigger picture. Warfare, strategy, geopolitics. The Arthaśástra is famous for this, isn't it? This is where we get into realpolitik.
Very much so. Long before the term existed, Kauṭilya lays out what's called the six-fold policy for dealing with other states.
Okay, what are the 6 folds?
All right, there's sandy peace, making treaties, Vigraha war, Asana neutrality, staying put, Yana marching, preparing for attack, Sajya seeking alliance or protection from a stronger power.
And the last one.
Divaidi bhava. This is a fascinating one. Making peace with one enemy while simultaneously waging war against another. Double dealing, essentially.
A very flexible, maybe ruthless approach to foreign policy.
Highly strategic, yes. Focused entirely on the state's advantage.
And when it came to actual war, Vigraha, did he just mean armies clashing?
Not entirely. He really breaks war down into three forms. There's open battle, the straightforward kind. Then there's treacherous battle, using tricks, deceit, surprise attacks.
And the third, you mentioned it earlier.
Silent battle. This is the really chilling one. Eliminating an enemy leader or key figures using spies, poison, covert means when there is no talk of battle at all.
Truly Machiavellian, centuries before Machiavelli.
Absolutely. And his strategic thinking constantly challenges assumptions. He weighs options constantly.
Like what?
For example, he asks, is it better to have a small ally who's easy to rouse to action or a big, powerful one who's slow and difficult to mobilize?
What's the answer?
He leans towards the small, responsive friend. Utility over sheer size.
Interesting. Another example.
Is it better to have an ally with vast territory or one who just has lots of gold?
Gold seems useful.
Kauṭilya argues territory is better because territory can generate both friends and gold in the long run. It's about sustainable power, not just immediate wealth.
That long-term view again.
Yeah.
So given all this focus on power and strategy, what did he see as the biggest dangers, the biggest vulnerabilities for a king or state?
He was very clear that internal problems were often worse than external ones. That lurking snake within your own kingdom. Sedition, corruption, dissent.
So tending your own garden first.
In a way, yes. And he uses this interesting analogy about destruction, saying the destruction of growing crops is far worse than just losing handfuls of harvested grain.
Why?
Because destroying the crops destroys the labor invested and the future potential. It's a deeper loss than just the immediate product. It's about undermining the foundation.
That makes sense. Did he talk about personal failings of rulers? Vices?
Oh, yes. He identifies what he calls the triad of evils due to anger.
Which are?
Abuse of language, harsh words, abuse of money, squandering resources, and oppressive punishment, unjust severity.
Things born out of anger. What about desire?
He lists the fourfold vices due to desire. Hunting, gambling, women, meaning excessive indulgence, and drinking.
Classic vices. Did he rank them?
He does offer a nuanced view on which might be comparatively worse in certain situations, but his main point is that suffering from any of these vices causes injury for a long time. They erode a ruler's effectiveness, judgment, and stability. They are long-term danger.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, a real deep dive into the Arthaśástra. It emerges as this text that's just, well, both ruthlessly pragmatic and incredibly comprehensive.
It really is.
It gives us this unique window into ancient Indian statecraft, showing such a deep understanding of human nature, power dynamics, how to run things. It feels very real.
And remarkably relevant in some ways. It's a blueprint for achieving and maintaining order and control, covering everything from the king's private routines right up to international espionage.
Written, as you said, nearly 2,000 years before Machiavelli's The Prince.
Exactly. It laid out these principles of realpolitik with such clarity, and not just the principles, but a detailed roadmap for how to actually do it.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Despite all our technology and progress, how much has the fundamental game of governance, the pursuit of power, prosperity, order, really changed?
That's the enduring question the Arthaśástra poses, I think. How much are we still grappling with the same basic challenges of human nature and political reality?
And maybe here's a final thought, something provocative for you, the listener, to mull over. If Kauṭilya, with his sharp, pragmatic mind, were advising a leader in today's hyper-connected, globalized world, what might he identify as the single most dangerous modern vice or calamity threatening a state?
That's a challenging question.
And following his own methods, what kind of subtle, maybe even silent battle solution might he propose to counter it? Something to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.